We are thrilled to have with us today Barry Eichengreen from the University of California at Berkeley, lecturing today at the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. Professor, thrilled to have you on. Great to have you back.
Good to be here.
Let's bring up your book first, folks. Exorbitant Privilege. I've had so many notes from people that have dived into this. The decline of the dollar and the future of the international monetary system. What would you like to see accomplished, Professor Eichengreen, at the Soros soiree in Bretton Woods?
Well, I think there needs to be a recognition that the IMF and special drawing rights are not going to solve our international monetary problem. We in the U.S., together with architects of the euro and the Chinese, are going to have to build a tripolar system that works.
There's that hope in the prayer that the IMF and SDRs, as they're called, could save the day. My reading is it's a pretty illiquid structure right now. And as you say in your book, the Chinese are really front and center, and the United States should not fear China. Should the United States have any fear at all, or do we feel like we're pretty strong now within your global system?
Well, the only people we have to fear is ourselves, basically. I think the threat to the dollar is the perception abroad that there are not enough adults making economic policy in the United States. A government shutdown would not be good for the reputation of the dollar.
On Friday, let's talk history as Sarah and Michael are up at Mount Washington. Let's bring in this chart here. Eichengreen considers a weak dollar policy real. Trade-weighted broad dollar. You see the Plaza Accord there over on the left, the Louvre Accord when we came down too quick, and then we get a fairly quiet period, and there's the so-called Rubin strong dollar. And up we go, and in 2001, things unravel, and we really are back to weakness going back many a decade. Barry, what is your prescription to get dollar stability or even a bit of a strength to the dollar?
Well, my prescription would be fiscal stability. That's what everybody, not only in the U.S., but globally, is looking to at the moment. And obviously, we still don't have the discussion not only about entitlements, but about revenues that I think investors abroad realize that we need to have.
When you look, folks, at the swirl of opinion out there right now, let's bring up op-ed 1 right now, the Thomas Mayer op-ed from the FT. And Professor Eichengreen, I don't know if you saw this, but Tom Mayer over at Deutsche Bank with Trichet must now raise rates again. The doves are wrong. The accommodators are wrong. Raising rates could not be waiting any longer, and more must now follow. Should we fear a restrictive central bank, whether it's ECB or Fed, as we try to bring that discipline and responsibility? That's a symbol of the grown-ups, isn't it?
Well, it is, but the problem doesn't lie in the central banks. It lies with the budgetary authorities. In my mind, the ECB has committed what could end up to be a series of errors. There's a lot of headline inflation in Europe, but there isn't persistent inflation yet. And I think that Europe will have to solve its internal problems through a combination of modest inflation in Germany and deflation at the European periphery. It's going to need both, and the ECB is not helping.
I mentioned, Barry, to Jan Hasius today of Goldman Sachs, the Alberto Alesina piece a year ago or so on political courage, his economic study of good political courage. We're seeing some of that in the United Kingdom. What courage do you need to see today and through this weekend from the president? What would you like to see the president do, given this shutdown in budget debate?
Well, I do think the president is trying to push the process in the direction of a real dialogue. And as I said before, I think we need to put entitlement cuts and revenue enhancement in the medium term, both on the table. And I would like to see the president make that explicit. I would like to see the Republicans in the House acknowledge it.
Here are bars of gold being made. Bring them up right now. They're there. They're making gold. That's how they get paid at the University of California at Berkeley. They give a bar to Brad DeLong and a bar to Barry Eichengreen. That's like tuition. You pay in gold out at Berkeley. Okay, here we go. Real gold. It's Golden Fetters in honor of Barry Eichengreen's classic book. Just a fabulous book to read, In Search of Golden Fetters. Barry, you look at inflation-adjusted gold, a David Malpass chart, and it's up, up, and away. What does the price of gold signal to you, and would you please explain why central bankers and politicians ignore it?
Well, it signifies to me, number one, that there is a high level of uncertainty out there in general, still given the uncertainties surrounding global geopolitics and the economy. But secondly, people are worried about fiat money because they're worried about fiscal solvency. So I apologize for coming back to the same point, but it all boils down to fiscal solvency and sustainability in the medium term. The UK, for better or for worse, has addressed that head on. In the United States, we continue to posture, in my view, rather than to take it seriously.
Barry, Golden Fetters, which everybody's read who's in this game, when you research Golden Fetters, or when you go back and look at chapters of it now in your teaching, what's the number one thing we get wrong about the gold standard? When you hear people pontificate about it, what's the thing we get wrong about the gold standard?
Well, number one, there's the assumption that the gold standard was synonymous with price and economic stability. The Wizard of Oz was arguably a book about deflation under the gold standard. So I think that point needs to be made. Number two, when you get up to the 1920s and 1930s, the period my book was about, you learn that the gold standard was always a managed system and that governments and central banks were involved. The idea that by returning to the gold standard, you could put monetary policy on autopilot and not have to have people like Ben Bernanke anymore simply isn't right.
Great to have you on, Barry, particularly on this historic day as a number of people confront where we're going up at Bretton Woods.